Hey everyone, this is Steve from GamersNexus.net, and today we are talking about Cube World, an action RPG voxel-based game that is inspired by the likes of Zelda, Diablo, and fantasy MMORPGs. We first covered Cube World in Saturday Heat Signature several months ago, where we explored the basics and discussed rumors. This video will cover everything major that we have access to so far. It breaks into sections of gameplay mechanics, combat mechanics, and general concepts, as well as environmental, what we know about the environment and biomes so far. So these are all confirmed things by Wally himself, the programmer, and let's start with an overview of the world. Cube World is an infinitely generating voxel landscape with effectively limitless vertical and horizontal bounds. The game is being developed entirely by a programmer named Wally, who is looking to achieve an action RPG feel with a fantasy focus and a focus on exploration and traditional RPG elements like questing, leveling, and group play. Cube World will be multiplayer enabled, and according to Wally's Twitter, is currently aimed at supporting 4 to 5 players, 4 to 5, let me speak that clearly, players in LAN or online play. He has suggested that there will not be support for more than 5 players currently, as the game's engine is not designed to handle it, and also he doesn't think it would fit the tightness of the group that he wants to convey. The game has numerous landscapes and environments, including just about every basic biome you can think of, major cities, small towns, faction strongholds, and kingdoms, which include walled countrysides and guards at the gates. Dungeons, caves, and more are all present in the game. Each environment is littered with appropriate prefabs and monsters. Dungeons have traps and interactive elements, like levers, for example. Mountains and mountain biomes are perfect for hang gliding, and we'll talk about that more later. Cities have inns, shops, towers, and other types of buildings, residences. And all of this, all the cities in Cube World are also randomized to an extent, just like the environments are. The game features handcrafted individual building components, but the engine then generates buildings out of the pieces that Wally has provided them. So there is nothing that is truly random, but at the same time, nothing that is fully human-made. So the cities will be quite varied in that degree. Exploring environments is similar in that regard. As you walk in the game, you will uncover more land, and this will generate, just like in Minecraft, to use a modern example. There are of course other games that procedurally generate things as well, like Diablo does this with dungeons, but it is all done fairly randomly within a set of parameters that is defined so as to restrict it to a point where it doesn't get all crazy. So further on the front of semi-customization, players can take these building components and place them to construct their own structures, but will not experience the freedom of building as demonstrated in, again, for a modern example, Minecraft. However, Cube World wishes to retain its focus on adventure and simplifies building to a level that is fulfilling to the player, but not stealing the spotlight, so to speak. There are multiple city and building styles within the game, too. So far, Wally has mentioned a medieval stone-style structure, North American wood style, European styles, and log structures. Temples, dungeons, camps, and fortresses comprise most of the non-friendly buildings, each of which houses enemy factions, treasures, traps, and obstacles. Proper dungeons will contain portal stones, which will allow players to teleport back to the entrance of a dungeon upon its completion, thus reducing the repetitive travel, because as we've discussed in game design videos in the past, it is not quite as fulfilling to travel through an area twice, especially if you've cleared it out in the first run. And as a random fact that is related to the caves and dungeons, Wally mentioned that the deepest cave he's encountered was 200 cubes below ground, and that he enjoys hang gliding through the cavernous depths to explore a bit more quickly. Different ores can be found deep underground in these caves, like iron and gold, which can then be used to work on crafting weapons and items. And crafting is a huge part of Cube World so far, from what we've been told. The game contains a lightweight voxel editor, which allows you to place different aesthetic highlights on your weapons and armor, each of which adds a special effect. Enchanting a weapon, for example, with wind spirits, will increase your speed and attacks temporarily from the video we were shown. And while Wally has stated that we can't directly create new weapons, we can modify existing ones to an extent that they're entirely custom, or at least to the level of their effects. Weapons that we know about so far are pretty basic, but include swords, maces, axes, great maces, great swords, great axes, shields. Unfortunately, not great shields. Not that that's even a thing, but I want it to be a thing. Can that be a thing? Longbows, crossbows, two-handed katanas, bombs, staves, wands, daggers, unarmed, lawn swords. Did I say that? Potentially shurikens, and plenty more unannounced options, so quite a few weapons there, and hopefully even more. The shurikens are one thing that he has mentioned a couple times and wants to add, especially for the ninja class that we'll talk about in a bit. There are also spells, of course, but so far I've only seen mention of a few major types of spells like fire beams, fireballs, and water-based healing spells that will go along with the two mage class archetypes we'll talk about in a moment. This all contributes to the top-level character customization approach of Cube World. We're given basic look choices and class and race choices, so you can customize your hair, your face, stuff like that. Like I said, basic look and appearance choices, and subclass archetypes are also present to choose from. Cube World aims to bring customization to the player, but not to the point where it's overly complex and confusing. You won't be able to modify individual stats like dexterity or strength, but you can choose a class and subclass, which will then level them appropriately, and you can also use equipment to bolster important stats for your build, which reduces obsession with creating the perfect character, so to speak, in power gaming, and allows us all to focus on the actual fun of the game. The equipment is where more customization comes in if you'd like to create a very particular build. Player characters can also accumulate pets in a pet bag and then equip them one at a time to play. Currently, pets can be recruited by feeding them their favorite food. They can also level and assist in combat just like other players can. And the pets that we know about so far, to name a few, include dogs, cats, moles, hornets, crows, pigs, penguins, bunnies, slimes, and other so-called quote-unquote special mobs that Wally has alluded to but has not defined. So speaking of mobs, we know a little bit about them so far. Following the rest of Cube World's random style, Wally has mentioned that enemy mobs will be generated based around a specific preset of requirements, but they will select from random bits and pieces. So a saurian turtle may have a large or short snout, for instance, and different body parts will generate different abilities and advantages for those bosses and mobs. Boss mobs will scale in level based loosely on their location in the world, so the starting regions will contain lower level mobs, but as you separate from civilization, they grow impressively difficult. Submonsters possess the ability to destroy bits of the environment, so it's entirely possible that you'll feel the environment disintegrating around you during epic battles. They can take down trees and mountains just with a couple of swings of their giant axes or whatever they're holding. Ogres carry massive clubs that can stun a player and potentially be fatal. Of course, getting smashed by anything that weighs a couple tons is probably pretty fatal to most people, so nothing knocking the characters there. Battle will ebb and flow around a tight combat system where subsequent attacks accumulate beneficial effects like increased speed or bonus damage. Character abilities are governed by their primary archetype or class, then secondarily by a subclass. Wally has been fairly definitive with his 4 available class and subclass options, which are currently listed as a warrior with guardian or berserker subtypes. Guardians have increased health and defense, like tanks, and berserkers have increased attack speed with each subsequent hit, like barbarians in most games. Rangers have sniper or scout subtypes. Snipers have highly accurate ranged attacks at very long range, while scouts are more mobile and good in mid-range environments. Spirit mages are your mage user. The fire mage and water mage are 2 subtypes. Fire mages shoot firebolts, fireballs, fire beams, all kinds of stuff like that to burn enemies to death, and water mages can heal allies with what Wally has called water puddles or cast other damaging spells. Rogues are the final class that we know of. They currently consist of assassins and ninjas. Assassins ambush enemies and use stealth attacks to take them down and are more active in that regard. Ninjas are more reactive and are specialized in evasion and counterattacks. Wally has suggested that he is interested in pursuing a paladin class next. though the current list seems fairly set in stone, so I don't know if I have too high hopes about too many more classes. He is also investigating a PvP or arena combat system. Combat also requires user-controlled aiming, as there is no longer an auto lock-on system as shown in some videos. This is important for a lot of reasons, one of which is the damage rating of normal attacks. Non-ability attacks are more powerful than in previous iterations of the game, but also significantly easier to dodge. This makes stamina and spirit point-based attacks an important resource that must be employed more strategically. So if you want to do normal attacks to fill the time while you're regenerating your spirit points, that is great, but they are easier to dodge. Wally also mentioned via Twitter that he hopes to add boats and ships, though we can already swim in the game, but he does want to add boats at some point in the game. Further, on the environmental interaction front, players can carve out holes in caves, create bypasses, and generally destroy voxels with use of very Zelda-like bombs. These can be placed in caverns and detonated to link tunnel systems, and will not be effective against non-organic voxels, because that would affect the performance of the game and the gameplay. But they will work on organic voxels, like environments. Climbing cliffs is also a solid function of the game that has been added, and well, actually it was added quite a while ago, but it allows players to feel secure in their ability to explore deep mountains and caverns, and escape, of course, cleanly. The game is shaping up to be the epitome of adventure and exploration, so we can only hope that as things progress, the community can show patience and allow time for a proper, tested build to be promoted to the web. Show your support for Wally by visiting his blogger page linked in the description below, and feel free to check out our full article on what we know about Cube World so far, also in the description. And with that, I will see you all next time. Peace.